Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Christopher Nolan's Inception from 2010. So yes, back again here, and we certainly are here to review this film, 4K this time. So yes, very exciting stuff. This was a rewatch last week, about a week ago now. I can't remember the exact day, but yes, I rewatched this just after rewatching The Dark Knight Rises, and then of course since I've actually watched The Prestige once again the other day, and without getting into that, specifically, I now love that film, absolutely adore it. So I cannot wait to talk about that. I liked it before, but now I love it. And Inception, of course, is a film that I've always loved. This is it's going to be a spoilers review, of course. We'll be getting into some spoiler territory here. Maybe that wouldn't even matter for some because it's just, even if I explained it, some people. It's a film that famously a lot of people just don't get, and that's understandable, of course. It's a film that many just are kind of put off by this and stuff because it's very complex, and there's a lot going on. People not knowing what kind of is going on with the dreams, what state, and what level, and whether or not it is a dream. It's all this kind of stuff, and going back to. I basically first saw this as soon as it came out on Blu-ray and DVD. It was DVD I had actually, yes, back then, of course. And yes, I watched this. I loved it, and I didn't really know too much people that also shared the same opinion as me, really. Back then when I watched it, and because the same sort of the kind of thing where they didn't like the film because they didn't understand what was going on, and of course I didn't understand every single aspect in terms of is this, is it that, and stuff. But I knew what was going on, and I loved the film, and I thought, it's just such a complex film, not convoluted. I don't feel there is a difference, and actually, certainly one rewatch it only took for me to pretty much understand the whole film, and there is ambiguous moments in the film, especially the ending, of course. But it's. I think a lot of the Nolan films, they kind of there seem to be ambiguous endings, but I don't quite see them as kind of all this as I do I kind of I'm quite sure of what I think of the endings for this, and even Dark Knight Rises, that's a weird one where so many say it's this, and I don't see it like that. I interpret it differently, but yeah, I don't think the ending to this is all too too kind of mysterious. I think I do kind of think he did actually see his kids in the end. But yes, this film certainly for me one of the most mind-blowing films, certainly of the century. You can tick that off, and really among the best films that I've seen of all time. Really, this is just a masterpiece in my opinion, and wow, it's something to behold. It's a very it's very complex. There's so much going on here. Not convoluted, as I've said, but it is. It's a film that you can just kind of be in awe at. The script alone, I feel. This is not going to be an analysis, of the film, kind of technically here, but yes, the basic plot we'll go into, of course, and kind of just. I think admire the plot because it's such a wow, what a plot, and I don't usually kind of care too much about this, but Dom Cobb is this this guy who infiltrates people's dreams. He steals secrets, of course. It's an espionage kind of thriller here. It's many different things. Action. It's kind of of course sci-fi, kind of fantasy. It's kind of love. Well, it's a tragedy. But yes, this is. A film where this character of Dom Cobb and his partner Arthur, basically they can infiltrate dreams, and kind of there's different layers, of course. All of their each kind of unique color tone. This is genius. And then of course he is tasked by this man, Mr. Sato, played by Ken Watanabe, and he basically says, I want you to do this. I want you to plant an idea, in someone's mind. And this is called Inception. That's what Inception is: to plant an idea, in someone else's mind, subconscious, through different techniques, and all very very complex and almost impossible. It seems for them to do, and in order to basically, this character of Robert Fisher, played by Cillian Murphy, he's the son of this guy who basically is in charge of. He runs this empire, this energy company, and yes, basically Mr. Sato is a competitor, and he basically says, I want you to break this empire up, so basically, yeah, he can flourish, and then in exchange for that, Dom Cobb gets to basically all his crimes, cleared, his criminal history is wiped, and he can return home to his family, as his wife, of course, died, and it's believed that the Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, his character of Dom Cobb, killed her. That's why he's kind of a fugitive in certain parts, and yes, he's doing this. He does this mission, what is almost impossible, in order to get back to his family. Now, that could be complex. It is for some, understandably. There's a lot going on in this film, but I think it's just such a interesting plot. It mixes human emotions, themes of family in here. As I've just kind of glossed over there. Him wanted to return to his children, and this whole thing, this tragedy, as we know, unfolds. And you learn that actually he was responsible in many ways for the suicide, basically, of Mal, played by Marion Cotillard, and she is so wonderful in this film. Wow, what a performance! And she's also in The Dark Knight Rises as well. I'm very interested in there, and I love her in that as well. Really, really great. And yes, this unfolds. You learn more about this. It's got so much layers. In this, it's a thriller heist film. Espionage kind of stuff here. Bond-like, very Bond-like at times. Actually, the final set pieces, of course, with the snow and everything. Actually, it's been noted by Nolan that it's inspired by, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. For me, the best Bond film of all time. And yes, I believe it's Nolan's favourite actually as well. And yes, it's basically inspired by this, and which is great, of course. And yeah, it's got so much going on. It's got loads of action, of course. It's got a mixture of film and digital, IMAX at times. It's got different colour tones for the different layers, different dream states. It plays with time. It plays with everything. Slow motion is involved, rotating sets. This is a big film, and it just so happens the execution is, for me, flawless. I think this is a true masterpiece, and I just think it's something to behold how he kind of he controlled this whole film. It's so precise, but then it kind of it's got such a charm to the film. It's not all kind of just focusing on technical aspects. It's got great characters who I get so invested in. Paige is brilliant. She such a great character. Kind of a curious character who gets kind of basically she becomes a designer, of course, for different dreams and stuff, different worlds, and kind of building this. And he uses her, of course, for this mission. And you've got different people teaming up. You've got Tom Hardy as well in the film. He plays one of the main characters here, and of course Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, being one of the main people involved in this team, if you will. And yes, the bulk of the film is them, trying to plant this idea, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot to kind of execute this, and as we know, in the end, they are successful. And I believe he does get home to his family, and yes, it's just it all kind of makes sense to me, at least, and through multiple watches. I don't really think it's too ambiguous, really, but the end, it's a smart way to do this, with the ending to kind of get people talking, comparing ideas. But I think it certainly to me anyway is something where he does, I think, return to his family, and I just think that ending kind of moment with the music, of course, time playing, is just, it's one of my favourite modern endings, really. And Hans Zimmer, wow, this is something else. This is an operatic film, of course. The use of music is key in this film, and Hans Zimmer just makes, he's creating one of the best scores, in my opinion, that he's ever done, really. And just the way it's used within the action, the emotional moments as well, and just it really gives such a kind of emotional weight, a spiritual level that this film goes to through the score at times. It really is something else. And all these tracks, Mombasa as well, just perfectly suited, for example, to the action. And we'll get more into the action, actually. That's something else. But yes, these characters, and I love the way you're just introduced to this world. Kind of you're thrown in there, and this could put people off, of course. The opening 20 minutes or so, you literally just chucked in there, and you're kind of left without any sort of answer. First viewing, I guess you wouldn't know what's going on, but it's a film where it just opens up, and gradually you get more and more exposition. You kind of just, if you feel it, feel the film, while concentrating on the details, you can certainly follow along in many ways, and it's a film that it has the answers there. I feel even with as I've said, the color tones and everything, and the way it's shot, and stuff, and different things. They do kind of explain at times, maybe subtly at times, but it's there to how to kind of differentiate, how to separate these kind of layers perhaps of different dream states, and this is so good. This is wow. There's something about this film that just is so investing from the get-go, and just the whole exposition to this film, within the plot, but also these characters. Dom Cobb, is someone who doesn't, you're kind of very, very suspicious, of course. And Paige's character as well, she's very, very suspicious of him, and she's trying to reveal more, and slowly kind of, not always as it seems. Of course, it's said, pretty early on that Dom Cobb is someone who, did not kill his wife, and he's kind of wrongly accused, but you learn that unfortunately, and not by really his full intent or anything like that, of course, he does basically in many ways kind of create the death, cause the death of his wife. Very, very sad, of course, and he's filled with regret. This really deals with this feeling of guilt and regret, and maybe, if it's possible, redemption, but more just this kind of feeling of guilt. Certainly running throughout his character, Dom, and it's a very, very powerful film, I feel, particularly in this, and the scenes you see, the flashbacks, and also just Mole, her character, the character of Mole, how she kind of is used within this kind of this film, and how Paige's character as well, she kind of sees her, she comes into contact with her, and it's just such a perfect kind of blend of drama, in this film, and never straying away from the actual this mission that they're on, and it's just wow, the balance of genres, of different events, different things, action as well. There's massive set pieces, but never am I kind of detached from these characters. Their arcs, of course, even the side characters, just so charming. Tom Hardy in this film, it's a very energetic Tom Hardy. There's a lot of Tom Hardy performances you can kind of group together, but I think he's just such a great actor. This is one of his more outgoing, kind of energetic, kind of characters. Very funny character, very charming, and the dynamics just work so well within this group. The jokes they're made, and just so enjoyable. These characters are just so good, and there's a weight to some of these characters as well, and just an enjoyability, I feel, and I think Robert Fisher as well is a great character. Cillian Murphy, really crucial, performance here. Actually, I think it's just really great. I see this more and more I watch it. I think he's just so good in this film. There's moments towards the end of the film where he's just got these expressions that just, you can just tell the confusion, and just this real strange feeling that you get from this kind of the emotions throughout the film. It's just such a, and it deals with legacy as well. These themes through this kind of storyline with him and his father, and it really taps into this. There's so much depth to the film, and not just the characters and stuff, and the overall narrative, the storyline, and all these different characters. We must say, within this mission, but within the visuals, the depth of the visuals. This is a mastery of the visuals. The editing as well is just, well, I mean, to put this together, to edit this film in this way is very difficult. I don't think much people would disagree with that, and it's got such a flow to the film. You've got different, playing with time, of course, being a big theme in the film, and the fact that in different levels. You know, there's different kind of passing of time. You know, the different levels. Of course, the more you go further, the more time, the slower that it all kind of happens at higher levels, and it's kind of years and years could pass technically in these levels, and it's so interesting how it plays with this, and you've got this very, very subtle at times, but definitely there, and one that you can study, these kind of different colour tones, as I've said, and it's so interesting in this, and how you can kind of observe the film, and just kind of just study it, and kind of immerse yourself in this. It's such a rich world that he creates, Nolan. There's different rules, of course, that he kind of creates, and then of course just convincing maybe us as a viewer of this, and then once we are convinced and we do believe, or at least I do, and it's many different ways of believing, and not everyone will, which is understandable, but once I am in there, I am along for the ride, and every single moment it just works for me. Every single story beat. There's such an emotional resonance with this film, and just as a pure, an action thriller, there's rarely been a better one, this century, that's for sure. This is just an absolute masterpiece, in my opinion. And then you've got one of the best endings of all time for me, really, certainly of the century. Wow, what a film. Leonardo DiCaprio, is one of my favourite actors, of course. Certainly top 20, that's what I would say there. Wow, I just love Leonardo, literally everything. But this is a very different role for him, and it's got, there's similarities in this between this and other films, of course, that he's in, but and other performances. But wow, this is definitely very different, and I think he is just perfect in this film. He's one that he's likable. He's kind of quite a harsh character, maybe at times, and one who's such an interesting character, such a compelling character with a lot of stuff going on. Very someone who's riddled with guilt, and he's really regret, of course, and this tragedy. I feel such a tragic film in what's happened with his wife, and there's something where it just really goes quite dark. It involves suicide and everything like that, and just depression. It deals with all this. It kind of there's a lot going on in this film, but it never kind of feels like it's not perfectly balanced. I feel this is the thing. Nolan really balances it perfectly, and it's got such a flow. A very a massive blockbuster, but it's not. I don't just think of this as a blockbuster at all. It's drama. It's it's such depth to the characters. It's something where the end result is something truly legendary, in my opinion. Spiritual. It deals with there's been films, of course, that are more dreamlike than this. Something where and feel more like dreams. You perhaps and kind of have how they kind of they feel, how you would see them on screen, perhaps. There's been more films that kind of do this, but there's never really been a film quite like this that kind of deals with it head on, as part of the plot, and as actually part of the characters, being so aware of this, and the different levels, and the subconscious, and projections, and all this that's going on. I love them moments as well, when they're kind of the paranoia within it, all these human emotions, these thoughts that are just kind of used so well, and integrated into the plot. It's so believable, this film, and it's once again, like most Nolans, put into a more gritty kind of realistic world, but it's something that's truly, of course, this is a massive sci-fi film, but it's just a perfect blend, I feel, with this fantastical qualities, and the realism. I suppose it edges more towards realism in many regards, of course, like of course most Nolans do, but yes, it's something that it's just it's so unique, this film, and to come up with this, I think it's just wow, what a an individual, and the whole cast here, the crew, wow, just Hans Zimmer as well, as I've said, wow, what a score, absolutely mind blowing. Once again, we've got a kind of another rendition, as you will, time being, like Journey to the Lion, from the Film Red Lion, of course, and you know, it's if you look online and stuff, you can see this, and yeah, there's this. Also, 12 Years a Slave is yet another kind of rendition of this, which is really really interesting, of course. But yes, I'm not going to get into that too much. But yes, it's very very interesting, and I prefer the one from The Thin Red Line personally, but this is just amazing as well, and just all the music in the film, the way it's used, particularly, is just stunning, and I think. Yes, every single act just builds and builds. You've got this kind of more upbeat, kind of energetic in many regards, joyous kind of sense of wonder. This self-discovery. Paige's character, of course, she kind of when she's discovering this, she's kind of the sense of wonder at this new world has opened up to her, and it's just the visual creativity here in the certainly first 45 minutes, is just something to behold. Of course, these famous sequences, of course, the cities and everything going on here, the mirrors and everything. Wow, this is really really genius, and it's just kind of something you're wowed by once again. And yes, but then the first hour, yes, is just perfect. It's so upbeat and so enjoyable. The film just gets better and better in my eyes. The final act, which is very, very, sustained, massive, massive set pieces, of course, and you've got different layers, kind of working in harmony, building so much momentum. The van is slowly falling, of course, off the bridge. And you've got the rotating sets. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his character of Arthur, kind of in the fight scenes, and that is, one of the best. Sets of all time for me, that kind of moment there. And this is real practical effects. Yes, the CGI, but the blend here is so perfect in my eyes. There's a lot of CGI, of course, in certain parts of the film, but it's not something where it's just used so well. It was great CGI, of course, and it's used so well, and it's blended so wonderfully that it's just pretty much the entire film still has this practical feeling, and it's just it's never cheap. It's just there's so much put into this, and so much believability within this that I never kind of get taken out of the experience. It's Nolan, I think, is one of the best just using CGI really, and it's just so good. And of course he never strays from using plenty of practical effects, and it's just so much visceral moments in the film, in the action, the fist fights, of course, the car chases. This is kind of course, as well inspired by Heat, which is another masterpiece I like even more than this. But yes, it's inspired by Heat, and obviously the heist elements in there, and the kind of shootouts and stuff, and yeah, the color tone at times, of course, the kind of cool blues and everything, and yeah, I think it's great to see that, and yes, it's just. There's so much going on here within the action. It's something to behold. The final act is just constant, mind-blowing cinema, in my opinion. Of course, the scenes in the snow and everything. It's just, and it's so invested in how it kind of links in within the different layers, and kind of how this is going on, the plot with the action. Never loses sight of the characters, of course, and just. Wow, what a film, and certainly what a final act. But it's not just this action and everything, which of course, I love, and I do love loads and loads of action films, of course, but it's these characters, really. It's this emotion, the spiritual levels of this film, reaches, the way that Christopher Nolan elevates, all the emotions in the film, and brings it together to a truly meaningful experience, and the whole kind of this tale of Dom Cobb and his emotional journey here, and how you reveal more. It reveals more about his character and his kind of what's happened, of course, and this tragedy to the film, but also a truly hopeful ending. I feel, and this kind of the sense of wonder. This is why I love the film so much. I love everything about the film, but this really is just, it's so enjoyable, and it's so emotional as well. It really really is, and just. Absolutely, it gets full marks. No question for me personally. Of course, not everyone loves the film, but I personally do. Everyone, I do love this film. It's one of my favourites, among my favourites. It's certainly one of the best of the century. This film gets full marks, and it gets well into my plus tiers. This film is truly something to behold. It is mind blowing. Yes, it is for me, and yes, it gets my extremely high rating of 100% plus tier 2. So yes, absolutely something else. This film it went into my top 200, of course, and tier 2 is not a rating I give away too lightly in the grand scheme of things. And yes, to get this, it certainly is something, and it's one of Nolan's very, very finest, in my opinion. As I've said, it's not his best film, but certainly not too far off of that. I think it really is something else, and it's just absolutely one of the best films of the century, and without a doubt, the 2010s, it really is among the very best here. But yes, it's just everything in this film, the story, the plot here, the way the characters are just so alive, these performances, Tom Hardy, of course, Cillian Murphy giving a really, really emotional, subtle performance here, and Leonardo, of course, the great Leonardo DiCaprio, just this is magic. This performance, it really is, and he is just such a great actor. One of my favourites, Ellen Page, so good in this film. She adds a lot of the wonder, the sense of wonder to the film, and how she kind of interprets everything, and just the energy as well to her character. She's such a great actress, of course, and yes, the charming, always charming Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He is so good in the film. It's Tom Hardy, one of his best performances. Just so good. Michael Caine, of course, as always, pretty much. Here he is in a Nolan film with a very, very small part here. Nevertheless, very, very memorable in the film, and it's kind of just a very comforting moment when you see him at the end of the film, and I think it's this way that explores family and kind of the tragedy within this, with Marion Cotillard. She is just so wonderful in this film, and it's very, very dark. It's a very kind of sad film, but it's really, as well, very, very hopeful, truly hopeful, and just an enlightening experience, I feel. Really, really is, and it's something that I guess not too much people would not be fascinated, by dreams, and it's just one of them films that it really is just so invested in this, and it's so fascinating, and just an experience really like no other, for me, and just an absolute masterpiece. This film is certainly one of my favourites. So tell me your thoughts in the comments, of course, for this film. Certainly I personally love this film. It'd be great to see discussions on this film, and maybe interpretations, and your favourite moments or something like this. And it's just how it, as always, with directors like this, filmmakers, how it ranks for you personally among the works of Christopher Nolan, and I personally think it's one of his very, very best. It'd be great to see your thoughts in the comments as well, and your take on this, and it's just all things cinema, of course. Discussions here, as always, and yes, cannot wait to review The Prestige in particular. I know, of course, The Dark Knight Rises is a film that I'm going to review soon, but that's not popular. And maybe be respectful, as always, I have to say. But I know that's not everyone's cup of tea. Not a very well-regarded film at all. But I personally do love that film. And but The Prestige, this is a real what happened the other day when I watched that again was I loved it. I don't know what happened the first time round, and it's certainly a film that, well, I can understand how people count him among his best. We'll get to that, of course, and I'll probably review that before The Dark Knight Rises, but I can't really say an exact thing on that. But yes, Christopher Nolan, of course, for me, one of the great directors, without a doubt, of all time. He's just one of the greatest directors, period. Not quite top 10 or maybe not even top 15, but not far off. I think he's one of the greats, and certainly he is one of the giants of modern cinema. He is just it kind of makes me pleased that there are people, filmmakers like this, who are as well, particularly keeping film alive, and just preserving this and kind of just keeping up with the creativity and inspirational films here, and just really making films to move people. A variety of different films, of course. Yes, there's similarity in his work. Different things you can, of course, you can maybe tell it's a Nolan film, but he's really doing something constantly that is just wowing me, and just something that I've not seen Dunkirk yet. It's one of the only ones I've not really seen, but I will check that out, of course, very very soon. And as always, thanks for watching my review.